Yes, the Kimani, Chairperson, Finance. Where is Kimani? Has been here? Yes. Is your motion now? Sendobank. You can now ask Shole to come. Ask Shole.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I raise that this House approves the joint committee report on the approval hearing of Mr. Andrew MUKITE MUSANGI as the chairperson of the Central Bank of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, before setting the specifics of the approval hearing, it is befitting to understand the motivation behind this vetting exercise, Honorable Speaker. Article 231 of our Constitution establishes the bank, the Central Bank of Kenya, which, Honorable Speaker, is an institution responsible for formulating monetary policy, promoting stability in the economic space, issuing currency, and performing other actions as may be confirmed by an Act of Parliament. Section 11(2)(a) of the Central Bank Kenya Act, Honorable Speaker, establishes the office of the chairperson of the Central Bank, who is appointed by His Excellency the President through a transparent and competitive process with the approval of the National Assembly, with the approval of Parliament. Honorable Speaker, the chairperson oversees all the board meetings and should be an individual who is knowledgeable and experienced in matters of monetary policy, financial, banking, and economic matters and other disciplines as stipulated in the Central Bank Act. Honorable Speaker, the President nominated Mr. Andrew MUKITE MUSANGI for the position of the chairperson of the Central Bank of Kenya and communicated the same through to the National Assembly and the Senate. Honorable Speaker, yourself and the Speaker of the Senate did direct that a joint committee of Finance and National Planning of the National Assembly and the Standing Committee of Finance and Budget of the Senate to conduct approval hearings and submit a report to this House, Honorable Speaker. An advertisement was made in all the dailies and gazettement of the time and approval for this candidate, Honorable Speaker, specified. We invited members of the public to submit written written memoranda on the candidature of Mr. Andrew MUKITE MUSANGI. It is good to report, Honorable Speaker, that we did not receive any memorandum from the public, especially adversarial, on the appointment of Mr. Andrew MUKITE MUSANGI. Mr. Speaker, the nominee appearing before the joint committees showed that he had a vast knowledge and experience in matters of finance, monetary and economic matters as stipulated by the Central Bank of Kenya Act. He was Honorable Speaker, when it asked him of the question of how to tame the high cost of debt, Mr. Andrew, the nominee for the chairperson of the Central Bank, described to the committee that there was need to have a strategy on responsible fiscal management, monetary stability, and a dedication to transparency and a collaboration to achieve long-term economic growth, as well as reduction in the overall debt by putting in place measures to bring about competitive debt pricing. Madam Speaker, the nominee holds a Bachelor of Law degree from the University of Hull in the United Kingdom, and additionally, he holds a postgraduate diploma in law from the Kenya School of Law. He has also attended various trainings across the world on matters of corporate governance. It is also key to know that, the Honorable Speaker, the candidate, he is a director of very many institutions, especially financial institutions, to name just a few, Vipingo PLC to Rivers, among others. Mr. MUKITE, Honorable Speaker, has 28 years of experience, including and especially legal practice. Key to note, Honorable Speaker, was that during his practice in law, most of his clients were bank institutions. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, we have a candidate who understands the banking sector, having represented most of these banks in many matters in the court in his 28 years of experience as a lawyer, Honorable Speaker. In accordance to Section 11(7)(a) of the Central Bank of Kenya Act, which necessitates that a candidate to be approved to be a chairperson of Central Bank of Kenya must be a Kenyan citizen, we would like to confirm this to this House that actually one Mr. Andrew MUKITE MUSANGI is a Kenyan citizen. Honorable Speaker, we tasked the candidate on several matters, especially the issue of cryptocurrencies and digital currencies. And Honorable Speaker, it was interesting that to note that the candidate talked about having a central bank-backed digital currency. And especially in this space where we're talking about bitcoins and cryptocurrencies and talking about many Kenyans and global citizens losing a lot of money in this particular sector, just to name the most recent collapse of FTX in the United States of America, Honorable Speaker, shows that the time is ripe to stop using liquid currency, to stop using notes, to stop using coins. And the revitalization of mobile money, for example, Honorable Speaker, the use of M-Pesa and Equitel money and all the other mobile wallets actually has shown the world that it is possible to have those transactions being done without necessarily liquid carrying money in cash, Honorable Speaker. So most importantly, we put him to task and we're looking forward to, for the first time, Kenya becoming a lead again, not just in mobile money transfer, but having a central bank-backed digital currency. And this, Honorable Speaker, will also go a long way in harnessing matters in preventing cybercrime, ensuring that there is a protection of money of Kenyans, Honorable Speaker. We also tasked him on the question of the collapse of several banks. The last few years, Honorable Speaker, has seen the collapse of various institutions that have gone down with Kenyans' money. Just to name a few would be Chase Bank. First Community Bank has been struggling with customers not being able to go and get their deposits. Honorable Speaker, the candidate was telling us the best way he sees as a strategy to prevent this collapse of banks is to increase the capital requirement of these particular institutions, to have mergers and acquisitions. And I know the banking sector, for example, in the last few years, were very worried about when international banks like Standard Chartered Bank, Barclays, now ABSA, Stanbic Bank came to Kenya. And there was a fear that we were giving out our banking business to multinationals at the expense of Kenyan businesses. But what we would see after a few years, Honorable Speaker, was the starts and the progression of Kenyan-owned banks. Just to name a few, Equity Bank, KCB Bank, which are almost 100% Kenyan-owned. It is interesting, Honorable Speaker, to note, as a result of that, allowing these multinationals to come into Kenya in a banking space and take the lead, we have now our Kenyan banks wake up and becoming the lead. The best bank or the most prominent bank in DRC Congo, for example, Honorable Speaker, is Equity Bank of Kenya. And therefore, this demonstrates that you don't need to fear opening that space, Honorable Speaker. The Kenya shillings has taken a great dive over US dollar for the last few months. And all the efforts, Honorable Speaker, to bring down the exchange rate between the US dollar and the Kenya shillings has borne very little fruit, to be honest. We put to task this nominee, what new strategies do we think should be put in place to tame this depreciation of the Kenya shillings against the dollar? And it was interesting to note, Honorable Speaker, that there is an existing East African Monetary Treaty that sets out for the establishment of a common currency in the East African community. However, Honorable Speaker, very little progress has been made in this frontier, which begs the question, if a trader in the manga is buying products or services from the neighboring Tanzania, why does that person need to worry about the exchange rate of Kenya shillings to the dollar? If a trader in Busia wants to buy fuel across the other side in Uganda, why does that person need to worry about the exchange rate of Uganda shilling or Kenya shillings to the dollar? We have become slaves of this dollars, Honorable Speaker, and the high time the central banks of East Africa, the political leadership of East Africa, puts to rest the matter of this interest rate that someone sitting in a far-off country determines what value our shillings are through the establishment of the East African Community currency, and hopefully moving forward even having an Afro currency, what would be a currency acceptable across all Africa, Honorable Speaker. We've seen this happen with the European Union. Even despite exit from Brexit, you can go to very many countries in the European Union and you just need the euros, Honorable Speaker. So we're looking forward, we're wishing this candidate all the best. My ask for this House is we consider this great Kenyan, this great professional with 28 years of experience in legal, who has demonstrated good knowledge of financial, monetary, and corporate governance through all the institutions that he worked and through even running his own successful legal firm, and approve him as the next chairperson of the Central Bank of Kenya. And hopefully, then he will guide the bank in making sure, again, let me say two important things again, just to repeat, that we have a central bank-backed digital currency. And we get away from the over-reliance of the US dollar by having, for starters, an East African Community currency, and hopefully have an Afro currency that will be used as a medium of exchange across the African continent. And with that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move and ask the Honorable Vice Chair to second.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to second the report for the nomination of Chairperson of the Central Bank Board. Madam Speaker, I do not want to belabor the point. I think the Chair has given our committee position, but I only want to say the nominee is very qualified, Madam Speaker. This House should release him to go and perform his duties as Chairperson of the Central Bank, Madam Speaker. There are so many things that needs to be fixed in the economy, Madam Speaker, and therefore I do not want to belabor the point. I want to say I second, I support, and second. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Wilberforce Owundo, member for Funyula. Let me propose the question. Honorable members, I now propose the question that, taking into consideration the findings of the Joint Committee of the National Assembly, Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, and the Senate Standing Committee on Finance and Budget, in its report on the vetting of the nominee for appointment as the chairperson of the Board of Directors